Hey everyone, welcome back to Strange Mind 6. I'm your host Ruby, and today we're going to get back into Tales of Heroes, Gods, and Monsters, Native American Stories and Legends, a new introduction by Dr. Angelo Baca, General Editor J.K. Jackson. But before we begin, I would like to ask if you guys can please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And without further ado, my dear friends, grab a snack, grab a drink, or just sit back and relax. And let's get to it. Representation and perspective. Indigenous narratives have had a history of erasure and little to no representation. Whenever there was representation, it was usually stereotypical and incorrect. The old, outdated tropes Native American people have endured were directly impacting the ways that their communities and nations have been treated since colonial outsiders invaded their original territories. Their native omission were related to their negative perception in first settler colonial ventures to the Americas, then secondly, in their minds and imaginations of Americans in the political, cultural, and economic realms of life. Indigenous stories have always been distant from much more established literary traditions from the Western academic world. Authored stories were given more primacy and weight than those from indigenous oral traditions, simply because they were written down. In the view of Euro American dominant culture, some written works, like those from William Shakespeare, 1564 to 1616, or Charles Dickens, 1812 to 1870, were now interpreted as classics. The crushing weight of the written word expressed itself early, and often in the form of one of the earliest oral traditions to have been born before contact with the Americas, turned into a fixed textual form, the Christian Bible. How ironic it is that the world's largest and most popular religions also began as oral traditions. But since they were written down, systematized, and bureaucratically contained into a managed hierarchy of power and influence, many lessons and teachings in these stories were lost and made to fulfill the purpose of man rather than reestablish and renew the lost relationships of humans to other humans or humans to non-human beings. Everyone had their peacemaker, whether Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, Hiawatha, or Diganawida. Saying there is one singular true religion is like saying there is only a singular truth, authentic version of an oral tradition above others. These are all just valuable stories connecting our roots from a shared sacred tree growing from Mother Earth. Oral traditions can be very fluid in the ways they engage the world, and some realities beyond the one we inhabit as human beings. Shifting seamlessly between these worlds and among other dimensions is displayed in the stories effortlessly. It is problematic for two-legged beings considered human to make such dramatic changes experienced as a regular part of life. It demonstrates how limited we are in our thinking of human abilities and intellect. Living as a human being in the world does not mean we are at the pinnacle of nature or at the top of the food chain. Clearly, we still have much to learn as human beings. Learning to coexist in the world with other beings, spirits, deities, and people. When will we respect and recognize that our collective survival depends on shifting our perspectives to others, for non-human and human relatives, so we can thrive together? Native Myth, Native American Myths book. This book reflects the ideals and values that many Native American cultures and societies held close to their hearts. Authors Richard Erdos and Alfonso Ortiz express in American Indian Myths and Legends, 1984. Creation myths deal with both how the physical world as we know it came to be and how the many features of specific cultures originated. Such descriptions do little justice explaining stories because they are derived from Western thought-oriented concepts and do not reflect the holistic approach of existence within indigenous realities. Despite this, it should be no surprise these values show up in indigenous stories. In the section Origin Stories, the theme of beginning shows up again and again. Creation stories are alive with vital, powerful characters who interchangeably hold titles of deities, spirits, and gods. Nonetheless, creation stories set the tone and stage for later stories. Native foods appear in the Arikara legend of the corn and the Cherokee story of the origin of strawberries, who also appear as characters in their own stories. Explanations of different worlds above or below, or how specific groupings of man came to be, and the appearance of elemental forces of nature, such as fire, came into relationship with humans also emerged. In the Animal Tales section, our other than human associates are arguably the older and wiser of the world in which we coexist, from birds, beavers, wolves, buffalo, serpents, fish, bears, rabbits, deer, and possums. Many animals appear to parallel the human experiences. They speak, experience hunger, scheme, sing, and create just as people do. Our animal friends share teachings and exciting adventures to learn from. They are, in fact, from an indigenous perspective, people of a different kind. In the heroes, monsters, and the supernatural section, we learn that beings beyond us challenge our finite states of human existence in this world and the next. Stories of spirits amongst us let us know we are not alone. Tales of overwhelming odds are part of the typical journey of heroes. No matter the setting or period in history, conquering foes from giants, hunger, and grief, some inspire us, like the legend of Hiawatha, who helped lead his people into forming the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. Hopefully, I said that right. In the love and marriage section, we see relationships have always been a part of our lives, and these stories remain relevant to us. Commemorating love through story celebrates the experience, not just for human beings, but it weaves worlds together, like in The Sun and the Moon, describing the balance of night and day. Marriage, searching, longing, and loss are all part of living in the world. Yet classic love stories of being from two different worlds sometimes literally allows us to see how similar we all are. Metaphorically speaking, oral traditions are like the tip of an iceberg. We only see the surface, but the more we look under the iceberg, we see the stories have deeper levels. Usually entertaining and exciting aspects of these unique stories stand out. But if one looks deeper, we see beyond the obvious. As Tolkien states in Anguish of Snails, Native American Folklore in the West, 2003, the survival of an orally transmitted story is in itself a testimony to its ongoing validity as an expression of cultural meaning in dramatic terms. A narrative is a sequence of related events acted out by characters who experience an important complication and when witnessed its resolution. Of course, not of course, most narratives must be interesting and entertaining, or else why keep telling them? Indigenous oral traditions are packed with lessons, histories, and teachings. So, vitally important that their content and characters are components of the holistic and overall value of the story. A reason why such stories keep getting handed down from generation to generation. Taking the iceberg metaphor further, today's anxieties are about melting ice caps, droughts, and climate change. It is contemporary concerns of our daily modern lives that are slowly eroding our own abilities in storytelling in the ways our ancestors used to do. Just like the icebergs in the Arctic North are slowly eroding in record high temperatures, the shrinking of these cohesive and solid stories, no matter where they come from, have always done what their purpose has been for generations before us, make sense of a changing world. But what does it mean when the world is changing so fast that the stories do not have a chance to keep up? And stories of seasonal changes, whether phenomena and certain regional natural phenomenon of plants, animals, and landscapes are at risk. We get to revisit Native American myths, oral traditions, and stories with new experiences that change our perspective, that change our perception over time. With each victory and tragedy, our views on the dialectics of the world and how each of us have conversations with other beings begin to shift because nothing in the world stays the same, nor is black and white. Tricksters and transformers show us many shades of gray. If there is anything the universe offers to teach us, it is that we are all truly diverse and still exist because we do, in fact, need each other. You need an example, you say? Well, there's a story for that. Dr. Angelo Baca. Origin Stories. Chosen from among the ancient folklore of a number of widely scattered tribes, the stories which follow are a very broad selection and some of the most popular and characteristics of Native American legends. Creation stories are an important theme in any mythology due to our innate nature to wonder where we and everything around us came from. The various tribes had different stories about how the earth came to be, how man was first created, and the origins of basic elements and foods. Most common ideas proliferate throughout. What were also evidently very important were stories on the origins of the different tribes and tracing their heritage back to the very beginning of how they came to be formed, how the world was made. The Cherokees believed the following about how the world was made. The earth is a great floating island in a sea of water. At each of the four corners there is a cord hanging down from the sky. The sky is a solid rock. When the world grows old and worn out, the cords will break, and then the earth will sink down into the ocean. Everything will be water again. All the people will be dead. The Indians are much afraid of this. In the long time ago, when everything was all water, all the animals lived above in Kalunlati. Hopefully I said that right. Beyond the stone arc that made the sky. But it was very much crowded. All the animals wanted more room. The animals began to wonder what was below the water, and at last Beaver's grandchild, Little Water Beetle, offered to go and find out. Water Beetle darted in every direction over the surface of the water, but it could find no place to rest. There was no land at all. Then Water Beetle dived to the bottom of the water and brought up some soft mud. This began to grow and spread out on every side until it became the island, which we call Earth. Afterwards, this earth was fastened to the sky with four cords, but no one remembers who did this. At first, the earth was flat and soft and wet. The animals were anxious to get down, and they sent out different birds to see if it was yet dry, but there was no place to alight. So the birds came back to Galunlati. Then, at last, it seemed to be time again, so they sent out Buzzard. They told him to go and make ready for them. This was the great buzzard, the father of all the buzzards we see now. He flew over the earth, low down near the ground, and it was still soft. When he reached the Cherokee country, he was very tired. His wings began to flap, and strike the ground. Wherever they struck the earth, there was a valley. Whenever the wings turned upward again, there was a mountain. When the animals above saw this, they were afraid that the whole world would be mountains, so they called him back. But the Cherokee country remains full of mountains to this day. When the earth was dry and the animals came down, it was still dark. Before they got the sun and set it in a track to go every day across the island from east to west, just overhead, it was too hot this way. Red Crawfish had his shell scorched a bright red, so that his meat was spoiled. Therefore the Cherokees do not eat it. Then the medicine men raised the sun a hand's breadth in the air, but it was still too hot. They raised it another time, and then another time. The last they raised it 7 handbreadths, so that it was just under the sky arch. When it was right, and they left it so, that is why the medicine man called the high place the 7th height. Every day the sun goes along under this arch. On the under side, it returns at night on the upper side of the arch to its starting place. There is another world under this earth. It is like this one in every way. The animals, the plants, and the people are the same, but the seasons are very different. The streams that come down from the mountains are the trails by which we reach this underworld. The springs at their head are the doorways by which we enter it. But in order to enter the other world, one must fast and then go to the water and have one of the underground people for a guide. We know that the seasons in the underground world are different because the water in the spring is always warmer in the winter than air in this world, and in summer the water is cooler. We do not know who made the first plants and animals, but when they were first made, they were told to watch and keep awake for 7 nights. This is the way young men do now when they fast and pray to their medicine. They tried to do this the first night. Nearly all the animals stayed awake. The next night, several of them dropped asleep. The third night, still more went to sleep. At last, on the 7th night, only the owl, the panther, and 1 or 2 more were still awake. Therefore, to these were given the power to see in the dark, to go about as if it were day, and to kill and eat the birds and animals which must sleep during the night. Even some of the trees went to sleep. Only the cedar, the pine, the spruce, the holly, and the laurel were awake all 7 nights. Therefore, they are always green. They are also sacred trees. But to the other trees it was said, because you did not stay awake, therefore you shall lose your hair every winter. After the plants and the animals, men began to come to earth. At first, there was only 1 man and 1 woman. He hit her with a fish. In 7 days, a little child came down to the earth. So people came to the earth. They came so rapidly that for a time it seemed as though the earth could not hold them all. And that is where we are going to end it today. Tune in next video, and we are going to be reading Creation Myth of Iroquois and Osage Creation Story. And we might be able to squeeze in the great deeds of Michabo. This has been Ruby, signing off, my dear friends.